Hello and welcome to Miss Charlotte Astrology. My name is Charlotte. I'm a full-time working astrologer, and on this channel I analyze the astrological charts of public figures. Very often they are celebrities or they're royals. But today I will be analyzing the synastry chart of two people who were and are titans in their profession. And of course, I'm talking about the one and the only, the patron saint of this channel and one of the greatest inspirations of my life, Marilyn Monroe, who was the biggest movie star that has ever existed. Straight up. And her husband, playwright, genius, Arthur Miller. He was a man of the people. He's most famous for writing the play The Crucible, which I learned in school and then ended up teaching when I was a high school teacher. Fantastic play. Go watch it if you can. Go watch it on a stage. It's very good. Is deep. And of course he did Death of a Salesman. So yeah, they were both very, very successful people. They ended up getting together, and when they were when they got together, they were dubbed the Hourglass and the Egghead, which is, yeah, as you can imagine, it's very fitting because she was known for being this beautiful dumb blonde in movies, and he was known as being this intellectual, so it was considered a bit of a mismatch. But people were wondering, why did these people find each other attractive? Well, it's very obvious why he would find her attractive. It's just obvious. But why did their relationship last so long? Like, he was the longest relationship of her life. What was going on here? So I wanted to have a look at their synastry. A lot of you in the previous video, I did synastry for Marilyn and Joe, and I asked you guys if you wanted me to do one with Marilyn and Arthur, and so that's why we're here. I'm also thinking of doing one for Marilyn and Marlon Brando, because those two hooked up, and that's like my fantasy football of celebrity hookups. Like, I'm just like, oh my god. Let me know in the comments if you want me to do Marilyn Monroe and Marlon Brando, because those two, before she got with Arthur, they were hooking up, and I read Marlon Brando's autobiography, which he then, disowned. But anyway, it was, so truthful. He didn't say too much, but he said just enough for me to, fantasize about it. Anyway, would have loved to have been a fly on the wall. I'm so sick. Anyway, we're here for Arthur and Marilyn today. So, before I dive in, I want you guys to know I do 15-minute MP3 readings. There is no meetup appointment. I record the reading and I send it to you via email. Another option is on Instagram. I do DM readings, so you can purchase those. It's the link in my bio. You purchase it, you take a photo of your receipt, you take a photo of your chart, you send it to me in the DMs, and we're going to chat about your chart or whatever issues that you're having in relation to your chart. And then, of course, I have YouTube members, so I've just set that up now. I'm going to be sharing my travel journey on there. It's going to be like a learning platform. I'm going to be talking to you guys. You guys can actually give me some homework. So if you guys want to know more about some topics in astrology that I might not have a lot of knowledge on, but I can research, and I'm really good at researching stuff and feeding it back to people, because I was a teacher for over a decade. So it's kind of my passion is to teach something I don't know. And I love the process of learning something when I don't know something. I love it. So it's going to be my members on YouTube is going to be more of a learning platform, and obviously I'm going to do sharing my travels and story times and things like that. So if you'd like to support me, it helps me financially. I'd be so grateful, and you get to talk to me directly on there as well. So thank you. Love you. Okay, let's have a look at this. So Marilyn she's the blue planets, the inner ring, and Arthur is the red planets. He is the outer ring. So as you can see, Marilyn is a Gemini sun and Mercury, and then she's got her moon in Aquarius, and then her rising is in Leo. Arthur is a Libra sun and rising, and his moon is also in Aquarius. So they have some really, there's a reason why she was with him for a longer period of time than Joe, because this is a much more cooperative chart than the previous one that I did with her and Joe. So I do see why this is actually in a lot of ways a better match for her, even though I mean, I like Joe. I know Joe's a bit of a prick, and I talk about why, but in the end, he like came through for her. So, and in the end, Arthur did use her and did abandon her. I think he did the best he could. We'll get into that, but I also think he clout chaser. He was a clout chaser a little bit. Anyway, let's go to the first bit. The destructive dream girl. Marilyn's Gemini sun and Mercury lies in, it's not a big orb, it's a big orb, sorry, so it's not quite a conjunction, but we're just going to use the word. Marilyn's Gemini sun and Mercury lies in a conjunction with Arthur's ninth house, Lilith, and part of fortune. And also hers is in the 11th house. So these are public, which is good. It's better that a public house meets a public house. It makes a relationship a little bit easier, because if you've got a private house cusp and a public house cusp meeting up, and I've talked about in some previous synastries, it gets awkward. It gets uncomfortable. You know, it messes with boundaries. 11th and 9th house, which is the Aquarius house and the Sag house, intellectual houses, you know, visible. It's not so bad. Now with this, what makes this difficult is that in a straight man's chart, Lilith represents the energy or the kind of woman that could destroy him. It's the woman that he wants to control. It's the woman he wants to possess, right? Like Adam wanted to possess Lilith, right? She was this beautiful wild creature and he wanted her to submit. So Lilith is the type of woman he finds attractive, but also the type of woman he wants to destroy if he cannot make her submit, right? But it's also the kind of woman that could destroy him. The woman he wants to destroy, but the woman who could also destroy him are the one and the same with Lilith. Now, his Lilith is in Gemini. He's also got part of fortune here. So I think that there were some other destructive women in his past that were inspirations for some of his other works. I think Marilyn was not the first. I think she was the last. I don't think she was the first. Her sun and Mercury. So the way she was, her self-expression, her charisma, her individuality, her creative energy, her creative force, right? The sun is like your creative force. It's your ego. She represents all the qualities of Lilith. She was this wild, sexual, sexy, crazy creature he just wanted to possess. And I also, with that playing out in his ninth house, which is the spirituality house, it's the intellectual expansion house, like it's where your horizons expand. She did that with him. Like she was his muse. You know, for the years that they were together. I do think that you could argue his creativity was also stifled. I mean, remember not that she intended to, but that relationship destroyed him creatively. It destroyed him. Like the wife he got with after Marilyn was the polar opposite. He got with an older woman, or a woman that was older than Marilyn. He got with a woman that was like a bit more homely looking than Marilyn. Like it was the complete opposite. Like I think she really just exhausted him mentally, spiritually, like intellectually. Like it was a lot. Like so her sun and Mercury playing out in his ninth house is very expansive, but it's also very destructive. And I think whatever belief systems he had were destroyed. Whatever faith that he had in a lot of ways was destroyed by being with her. Because Lilith destroys you. Lilith can destroy you. Lilith can inspire you, but Lilith can destroy you as well. So, also Lilith falling into her 11th house on her sun, like, you got to remember, you probably don't remember because a lot of you probably aren't obsessively crazy about history like I am, but she really risked her reputation to be with him, because at the time when they got together, he was being investigated, you know, with the McCarthy trials, he was being investigated for allegedly being a communist. And she stood by him. When they were dating, when they got married, she stood by him. She went to court with him. She could have ruined her career by being associated with him. She even had her house bugged because she was with him. Because if you were in any way suspected of being a communist, or you were associated with someone who was suspected of being a communist, you would have got your house bugged. So this was just another, there was like a big file. I'm sure the CIA had a massive file on Marilyn because she was hanging out with intellectuals and, you know, people that were getting in all sorts of trouble. So this was not good for her either. You know, this destroyed her as well, being with him. So yeah, not an easy placement, but I do understand the appeal of if you got someone's, in a synastry chart, if someone has placements that fall into your ninth house, they're going to teach you a lot. You're going to have a lot of fun. Yeah, I mean, I have Lilith in my ninth house. It's in a different sign, but Lilith in Gemini in the ninth house with part of fortune, that could have been fun. If he didn't end up with a Gemini lady, this placement by itself could have played out as a lot of fun times overseas, you know, like a lot of bad behavior you never get caught for overseas. But yeah, that's why I can't get with Leos, because I can't get with Leos. That's on my Lilith. No, it's gonna get all sorts of destructive, and I'll destroy you. Anyway, cute placement, but also not an easy placement. You know. The perfect wounded beauty. So Marilyn's Aries Venus conjunct, it's not in a conjunction, sorry, but it is in his 7th house, conjunct Arthur's descendant. It's in his 7th house. I should have corrected that, but oh well, we're already here. Marilyn's Aries Venus falls into his Aries 7th house. 7th house is the partnership house, which is ruled by Venus. The thing with Libra risings, their relationships can be really difficult. Because even though Libra risings and Libra placements in general, actually, they look to they dive into drama to create peace. You know, a lot of Libra risings are like, I don't like drama. Then why are you always in drama? Why are you always getting into these crazy friendships or romantic relationships? It's because Aries is on the descendant. You Libra risings, you dive into chaotic partnerships so that you can create balance, because that's what you're attracted to. Whatever's on your descendant is what you're attracted to. Aries is war. Libra risings are addicted to relationships where there is a power struggle and a fight. It's counterintuitive to have, like, Libra risings have a hard time because their house cusps are lying in the signs that are opposite to the energy that they're meant to embody, right? So the 7th house, the descendant, is meant to be the house of peace, of peaceful, loving relationships, and it's lying in the sign of war. So he's going to be attracted to Aries energy, feminine Aries energy. Marilyn has an Aries Venus, and her part of fortune is here. So being with her, I mean, it felt good. I mean, Venus in the 7th house is a really nice synastry. This is actually a really nice aspect. It's one of the nicest aspects they have. But you know, she also opened up his 7th house. Like, I think he opened up her world intellectually and spiritually. But she opened up his world of, you know, like social connections, and like 7th house is like partnerships. He got a lot of business deals. She got him work. Literally 7th house is also business deals. Being with her brought money in. Like, when she was working on a project after they got married, he would rewrite the scripts. He would work on the film that she was working on. He would be working with other directors, because basically when he was accused of being a communist, he pretty much lost respect. He lost his career for a while. So she helped him out with that. So she gave him abundance. Venus is abundance. And part of fortune is also abundance. So he got a lot out of her, you know. I'm not saying it was easy to be with her. I think she could be incredibly difficult, but he got a lot of opportunities and he got a lot of money being with her, you know. But yeah, she did a lot for him, actually. I know it was hard to be with her, but yeah, she opened him up spiritually and intellectually, and then she opened up pathways for him to make money and connections. That's what she did for him. Yeah. By the way, her Venus, which actually rules her midheaven's right here. It's got Chiron on it. So yeah, she's got Chiron midheaven conjunction here. It's a Chiron midheaven conjunction. Chiron's in a conjunction also with her with the ruler of that midheaven. So she's got a wounded beauty. I just did a reading on Timothy and Kylie, and Kylie has her Mars conjunction on her midheaven. So it's not the same, but it's similar in that being sexy and being beautiful is going to be met with rejection and hostility. Like the very thing that she was famous for, that she was praised for, that she was worshipped for, is the very thing that she's going to be hated for. And that's the problem with Chiron on the midheaven. You never really know your place. Like, what is my duty? What is my destiny? And being beautiful or being sexy is also going to lead to low self-esteem and rejection, like, because that's all you are, you know, like, or at least that's what people think, you know, because there's so much more to her than that, but that's what people's perception. It's a wounded beauty, right? Yeah, and I think that playing into his 8th house, I think he thought that he could maybe help her, heal her. It's a lot. Anyway, he got a lot out of that. A lot. Routine trauma. Marilyn's 8th house, Pisces, Uranus, Mars, Juno in a conjunction with Arthur's 6th house, Jupiter, Pallas, Athena, and Chiron. So this is kind of difficult. 8th house is a bit of a trauma house. I mean, it's a lot of things. It's a legacy house. It's like sex. It's the Scorpio house, right? So, it is sex, death, legacy, shared income, marriage, contracts, and things like that. She has Mars in the 8th house, which and there's Uranus here. Mars in the 8th house is like sex can be used against that person. If someone has Mars, it doesn't always play out that way. Not every single person with Mars in the 8th house is going to be molested as a child, which is what happened to Marilyn, okay? Like that Mars in Pisces, it's the hooker Mars. It's got another malefic next to it. It's got, Uranus. Like she was sexually abused as a child. That's what that placement is telling me. Okay, so please don't project onto it. This is specifically about Marilyn, but she's very chaotic. Her anger, her sex drive, it's very chaotic. It's very unruly, and that's because she was abused. And this very angry, chaotic, sexually charged placement is in his 6th house on his Jupiter. So it kind of, Jupiter expands things, right? So the sex was great, and it's on his Chiron. I think sex with her was a spiritual experience. Like, that's one of the reasons why he got with her, is because she was just, sex was an art, and she was great at it. You know, I've watched a lot of documentaries on this, and he was addicted to her. You know, he's got Pisces in his 6th house. I think he's also prone to addictions. Maybe not necessarily like a drug of any kind. I don't know if he was. I don't know enough about Arthur Miller to know if he was addicted to things, but I certainly know he was addicted to sex with her. Like that was a thing. Jupiter retrograde, he's a disappointing husband. Jupiter in a Chiron, a wounded, disappointing husband. If it's in the 6th house, I mean, I do think he had some vices, and it wasn't just sex. I think there were other things. I don't know what they were, but he's not fascinating enough for people to actually explore that. People always usually talk about him in context with Marilyn because she's the charismatic one. But yeah, a volatile Mars, Uranus, 8th house placement is sitting in his 6th house of everyday work. I think being with her for quite a long time, you know, it dysregulated. It hurt his routine. Like when they got together, he had a tough time writing. He had a tough time being inspired because she was hard work. Being with a woman, a girl that was abused as a child, she's going to have mental health issues. She's going to have problems with anger. She's going to have problems with emotional regulation and even sexual regulation. She really like pushed his boundaries and disrupted his working routine here. And you could also say that maybe even the sex disrupted him as well creatively. Like, so it both inspired him, but also kind of destroyed his creativity, like inspired it and destroyed it simultaneously. Like his work, the plays that he produced, the writing that he produced after he married her was not that good. After the Fall was atrocious. it was a hit piece on her, basically. It was so dark and dirty. But yeah, this is not an easy placement. I will say though, if you look here, do you see how his Juno, his disappointing retrograde Jupiter, disappointing husband, the husband is with, sorry, Jupiter is with Juno here. So she's got Juno in Pisces, he's got Jupiter in Pisces. Juno and Jupiter are married in the chart. It's chaotic, but they're married. They're married. Also, I could argue, because remember, Juno is the least romantic part of a marriage. It's more like the contract. It's like the commitment itself. It's like, I'm going to stay with you. It's the thing that's going to get you to sign on the contract. That's what Juno is. She has that with Mars. Sex and commitment and loyalty are very intertwined for her. And I have read things, go read the book by Louise Banner. She talks a lot about Marilyn's sex life. It's a really good book. But that sexual trauma as a child set the groundwork for her future relationships. You know, sex was a way of making a friend, of creating loyalty between two people. And I think it sounds so messed up. But again, she's got the hook of Mars because of that trauma. Like, the poor girl. Her Mars in Pisces is very sensitive. You know, there's a quote from her: I just want to be wonderful and I don't want to be a joke. And yeah, it speaks a lot to her sexual abuse, her need to have connection, and you know, her desire to be an artist, a creative. It speaks so much to that, yeah, to all of that. I just want to be wonderful. And she was very ambitious, and she was willing to do anything to get to where she needed to be. She'd been so traumatized, she broke down her own boundaries and other people's boundaries to do it. And very often that involves sex. It's very hard. It's very hard. Like, I feel bad for the poor girl. Mars on the Chiron, by the way, she's got a knife to his throat. She's got a knife to a wound. And I think she was cruel to him. I think she could be really cruel to him when she was angry. And he's a Libra, so he's really good at being a victim. He played his part too, so he did use her. I'm gonna get into that, but she was mean to him. She was very nasty to him. Go look at the documentaries made about the making of the Misfits. She tortured him on that set. Playing house, Marilyn's and Arthur's. Oh, so many. Why I keep making mistakes? I need to proofread these properly. But anyway, we're here. Marilyn and Arthur's Aquarius moon conjunction. So here's the thing. They're both emotionally chaotic. They both have issues, like some mommy issues here. Clearly, Arthur Miller clearly had some mommy issues. I don't know who his parents were. I don't know exactly what his relationship to his mother was. I'm just going by the placement. Moon in a conjunction with Uranus is a very chaotic family or a very chaotic mother, and that might be connected to I think his family were immigrants. I think they were Jewish immigrants. So there's some kind of discombobulation in the family that made him disconnect emotionally from his mother or the rest of the family. There's something there. And it's in his 5th house. So his the way he regulated emotionally was through 5th house things, like his creativity, his hobbies, which was writing. I mean, his 5th house of creativity, which is the Leo house, lies in an intellectual sign. So of course words are his art. And he writes to process. If you know his plays, he writes to process trauma. And he got a lot of trauma around his mum. He's got some mommy issues. The man was married 3 times. So was it 3 or 4 times? Something like that. Yeah. Yeah, not the healthiest. But at least he had a healthy outlet. He's got his North Node here. Like, his destiny was to be, you know, grounded into family and children. He had quite a few children. North Node with the moon is you know, your destiny is to have a family, right? Like, your destiny is to have children. And his North Node in the 5th house is the children house. So it took him, it was a bumpy road to get there. He created a couple of families. He almost created a family with Marilyn, but she miscarried. I think she actually had a stillbirth. I think it was 1957 or 1958. I think it was both those years, actually. I think one year she had a a late term. Marilyn had a late term miscarriage. And in the second one, I think she legit, I think it was like 5 or 6 months, she had a stillborn boy. So the family didn't work out with Marilyn, but there was an attempt to create one, which makes sense because she's got her moon here as well, like moons together. Those are people that understand each other. They understand each other and their emotional natures are very similar. I know Marilyn cops a lot of flack for being the crazy one out of the two and him being the sensible intellectual and how she destroyed him. And maybe she did, but he also contributed to that. He's got Uranus on her moon, you know, like that's not easy either. He used her for a claim. Like we'll get there. I'm going to talk about that because the way he proposed to her was disgusting. It was disgusting. But yeah, this is a nice conjunction, moons together, but it's chaotic. It's in a chaotic sign. They're in chaotic placements. 5th and 7th house, they're both social houses, so that's good. They had very wide social circles. A lot of the friends that they had were mutual friends. They met through friends. They met through colleagues and friends in the Hollywood, New York kind of world. They knew all the same people. And they continued to know the same people as time went on. Yeah, Jupiter on the North Node, Moon on his North Node. When he met her, he was like, that's the one. I'm going to marry her, have a family. She's my destiny. And she was. But doesn't necessarily mean it was forever. So, yeah. It's not a bad conjunction. It is still just a bit chaotic. It's a bit malefic. By the way, I also think she's a more generous person. Jupiter conjunct the Moon. A very generous girl. Very generous. I think he could be a little bit tyrannical and a little bit cold. Okay, sharing abundance. Marilyn, Scorpio, IC, conjunct Arthur's second house, Venus and Mercury. Marilyn, Scorpio, IC, conjunct Arthur's second house, Venus and Mercury, plus Arthur's ascendant and Sun and Juno in Marilyn's third house. So if someone has placements in your third house, they're going to be like your friend or your sibling. So obviously him being a Libra, and Libra ascendant, Libra Sun, in her third house of friendship, that's a really nice placement. It's twinning energy. And then he has Venus and Mercury on her IC. Funnily enough, in the previous reading I did for Marilyn Joe's Mercury, just his Mercury was in her 4th house. And Mercury is communication and speech. And so that's why it makes sense why he was like bossing her around and be like, don't do this, don't do that, give up your career, become a mother, have my baby, like that, you know, Mercury and Scorpio in her 4th house. It's going to get bossy. It's going to trigger her Saturn. It's going to bring back all sorts of trauma. It's like very triggering. What makes this a bit easier, he has his Mercury here, so I do think he did that. Like, I think by the time they got together, she was ready for that. I think she was at her Saturn, at the end of her Saturn return when they got together, when they got married. So she was ready for that baby and, you know, to slow down the career a little bit, which she did. So that Mercury there speaks to that, but also the Venus. Venus is abundance. Like his Venus is on her IC. So he's going to be sharing a lot of his wealth with her. Like he had a house in Connecticut. He had a house in New York. He had probably a house in LA. And they set up, like he set up a home with her, you know, like he set it up. She didn't own a house on her own until the year that she died. So having Venus, which is an abundant planet, literally Venus is love, right? The Venus on her IC, she's got Saturn here. She's only ever known like emotional and physical poverty with that Saturn. She's like got trauma around money. She's got trauma around family. Like she was not given the nurturing that she needed. Venus is going to give nurturing. Venus is going to give material possessions. So being with him already having children from previous marriage, him having like, you know, what I understand, a pretty healthy relationship with his father. I don't know about his mom, but I assume that was okay despite all the chaos of his moon. He really like let her into his life and gave her a lot materially. He loved her for a time. They had some of some of the happiest years of her life were with Arthur, and that makes a lot of sense with that Venus here. But still, it's very triggering. If someone's got placements on your Saturn, it's I mean, it's gentle. Venus is very gentle. You know, Venus is abundant. Saturn is going to be sucking that Venus dry. Like, it's going to, like, being with her was exhausting for him. If someone's Saturn is in the same sign as your Venus or on your Venus, the Venus person might feel drained, and he was. The Venus person's going to give and give and give, and then eventually there's going to be nothing left, because towards the end, I think, like, they were not in financial ruin, but they weren't doing as well. That's why she had to take up more projects. But yeah, she got that. It's just triggering for her trauma as a child. Her sexual and money trauma is right here, right? And he also kind of, because she didn't have a daddy, she was looking for a father in every lover that she had. That's why she always married or got in relationships with guys that were relatively older than her. Joe was like 11 or 12 years older. Arthur was roughly the same age. So it makes a lot of sense. But yeah, they have a good friendship. From what I understand, they knew each other for quite a few years even before they got married. So yeah. Show and tell. Now I'm going to share a story with you of how they got engaged. So Marilyn and Arthur were dating seriously. I think they had talked about marriage. And he was going to court for questioning about being a communist or whatever. And Marilyn went with him. He was trying to get his passport, or she was trying to get travel documents so he could travel with her to go to England to make that movie. There were journalists in his face with microphones, and there's footage of it. You can go watch it. And they're like, so why are you trying to get a passport? Why are you trying to leave the country? Because, of course, he was a communist, so they didn't want him to leave the country, but he was really pushing for it so he could accompany her. And he said, well, I want to go so I can travel with the woman who is going to be my wife. And they're like, oh my God, you're going to get married? And he's like, yes, I intend to get married to her. That was his proposal. That is like the most Libra bullshit I've ever seen. I'm like, what a fucking clout chaser. Like, he just announces to all these journalists, the whole world, that he's going to marry this woman. And he didn't propose to her in private. He didn't do that. That's why she was shocked. Then there's footage of her on the same day outside that courtroom with like cameras and microphones in her face, and you can see she's freaking out. They're like, oh, so congratulations on the engagement. Like, when is it? And she's like, I don't know. I don't know, dear. I don't know. Like, she looks so nervous. That's what happened. That's why I'm just like, Arthur, you freaking user. Anyway, let's talk about this placement, shall we? His 11th house is in Leo, right? The 11th house is, it's the Aquarius house. It's like the internet. It's publicity. It's, right? So it's a public house. His Mars plays out in that house. I know it's in the 10th, but it plays out in the 11th because that's where Leo lies, on the 11th house cusp. He also has a hooker Mars. He's got Mars with Neptune. So yeah, if he's got Mars and Neptune in a conjunction in proud Leo playing out in his 11th house of the internet, which didn't exist at the time, but microphones and cameras did, television did, he's going to want to control the narrative. He's going to enjoy having a public persona, which is fine, but he's willing to do whatever he can do to do it, to get there, to get that success, and having Marilyn on his arm at a time where his reputation was disgraced, it made him look good. She made him look good. She was America's sweetheart. She was the girl next door, so being with her made him look good. And her ascendant, her rising is in Leo. She also has Lilith here, so she also disgraces him and destroys him, so that makes a lot of sense. But he's yes, Mars in the same sign as the rising. He finds her very sexually attractive, yes, but also he likes the power that comes with being with her. Her ascendant falls in his 11th house. He's going to get recognition. He's going to get power just from association. And announcing to the whole world that you're marrying this woman was a good move. In terms of publicity, it was a very good move because he was not very popular at the time. She is going to help his image with this. In the end, she didn't, because obviously, like, his career went down the shithole. But yeah, he did. I think he leveraged her fame. He leveraged her beauty in order to gain favor with the public. And yes, he did get his passport. And he did end up going to England with her to film that movie. But yeah, he's got Mars and Neptune in a conjunction. So he also has a dirty ass hooker Mars. It just plays out in a different way. It plays out in the house of publicity. He put on a show, a very public show. Imagine someone like announcing to the world they're going to marry you and you don't ask them in person. Horrific. Horrific. Ugh. Monetizing pain. Let's talk about it. Marilyn's Cancer, North Node, Pluto, and Vesta. Why is this always happening? It's Vesta, not Vest. Conjunct Arthur's midheaven and Saturn. Spell check's been messing up on me. Anyway. So you see here, Marilyn's North Node of Destiny is in Cancer, which is the home, which she did. She bought a home at the end of her life. North Node in the 12th house. Drugs. You know, drinking, drugs, you know, fantasies, delusions. Also a death house. In a conjunction with a death planet, Pluto, literally died in her bed in the only home that she ever owned. Pluto conjunct North Node in the 12th house in Cancer. Like, that is exactly dying in your bed of a drug overdose, right? Now, his midheavens here, her tragedy, he leveraged it. He leveraged that and he put that into his plays. He wrote a play called After the Fall. And in the play, she does die at the end. I haven't seen the play, but from my understanding, because I've watched enough documentaries, that he basically wrote about Marilyn, the last years of her life, the demise of their marriage, and she died of a drug overdose. It's literally about her. And the play is not that good. It was panned. I guess he did it as a way of processing what he went through with her, because it was not an easy marriage, but it was very exploitative. It's very clear he exploited her. Saturn is on his midheaven, so that does indicate great success, but also great trouble with his career. His Saturn is on her North Node. So, I mean, you could argue his energy, that Saturn brought her to her destiny, which was to become this myth and this legend. Certainly he contributed to that. Because if your North Node's in the 12th house and you're a famous person and there's Pluto and it's, you know, like, that's like being reborn into mythology. Like, Marilyn is, you know, love you, Marilyn, wherever you are. Marilyn is now a myth. She is a legend. She's gone beyond being a flesh and blood human person. She's an icon, and icons have to be dehumanized. They have to be destroyed. They have to be sacrificed. They have to be crucified, publicly crucified and humiliated. And that's exactly what happened to her. And he helped them do it. He helped. He has her immortalized in one of his plays. Many other people have done that as well. Like, he's just one of them. But being with him and that divorce, like, it sent her off. It put her on the edge. Yeah. But yeah, his midheaven, a public placement in her 12th house of doom, her North Node with Pluto of doom. Ugh. By the way, if you have a North Node and Pluto in the 12th house, please don't think that you're going to end up like with Marilyn. No, you're not. I've seen people with this placement. They've lived long lives. Okay, so just please do not project onto this. I'm talking about Marilyn. I'm talking about Arthur here, okay? All right. Yeah. This is their whole chart. Now, as you can see, one thing I didn't talk about yet was this empty space here. Now, generally, if you want to be with a partner that you can help create a family with, and there's exceptions to every rule, because I've seen lots of great couples that don't have any synastry in their 6th or 4th or 5th houses. Okay, but I just want to point it out. He gave Marilyn a home. He's got placements in her 4th house or on her IC, right? He gave her homes to live in. He had money, like, very, like, supportive in that way. It's a very fruitful energy, even though it turned crazy in the end and was really hard. He gave her a home. Does she give him a home? No, she's got no placements in Capricorn that would anchor him into this. He's got nothing. He himself doesn't have any placements in Capricorn either. I'm interested to see what his second. I'm gonna have a look just for funsies to see what his second wife's placements were, because I think she was a much more grounded energy. He ended up with his last wife was someone he had much more in common with. And that was the one that lasted until his death. But yeah, she doesn't ground him into his chart. I think if you look at this chart, he's inspired. He's inspired and he's turned on. But is he at home? Is he at peace? No. And that also speaks to his chaotic placements. Remember, he's the one with the moon with the Uranus in Aquarius. I think in a lot of ways he was more chaotic emotionally than she was. Right? But yeah, she doesn't ground him into his chart. He does that with her. She doesn't do it with him. So, yeah. Turned on and inspired, but not at peace with her. And that's why the marriage didn't work out. But there was love and there was connection. But yeah, it's very difficult. Also, their Venuses are opposite. Like, his Venus is at an early degree in Scorpio and her Venus is at a late degree in Aries. So, like, they are straight up opposition. So you're already going to have, if you have Venuses that are opposite, doesn't mean it can't work, right? But generally when you have Venuses that are opposed, you have two different value systems that do not cooperate. You're operating on two different systems here, right? Her Venus is an impulsive Aries in the 9th house, and she longs to experiment and she longs to expand those horizons and she wants to learn. She wants to be with a partner who's older than her, which he was, older than her, more experienced than her, someone who's going to like teach her something. Daddy energy. I want daddy. I want my father. 9th house Jupiter shit, right? His Venus is in Scorpio. So he's all about being possessive and being, and owning her, right? Not to talk shit about the Venus and Scorpios, but it is like it's not an easy placement. It's fallen. Yeah. So it's not an easy placement. They're both hard Venuses. They're both Martian Venuses. There's always going to be some kind of battle in relationships. So yeah. All right. That's all I have today for this. I hope you enjoyed it. I love talking about Marilyn. Would you like me to see me do any other Marilyn videos? Like, is there? I want to do one with Brando. I think I'm gonna do that for funsies because, again, like I'm like sick in the head and I just want to like think about it because Marilyn was hot, and they were really good friends as well. And also, he was her friend until she died, so I respect that. Anyway, yeah. Let me know, do you love Marilyn the way I do? Put it in the comments, and if you don't, you can just shut up and not comment at all, because we don't talk badly about Marilyn here. We love Marilyn. Anyway, thank you so much for listening, guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.